do they look? It's right back towards the beginning of the SB19 journey, isn't it? They just look so young.
Sound check.
Well, g'day there. Welcome back to another vocal analysis here at Voice Essentials. My name is Dr. Dan, and today I'm going to do something a little different. Normally, we would, as you know, many of you have watched my analysis videos before. Normally, we would jump in, we would, watch a performance, and then we would, go through and analyze and talk about tone, timbre, pitch, resonance, performance, all of those juicy things. Today, we're going to approach it just a little differently. And it's as a result of an analysis I did. Now, I did it about 3 weeks ago as time stands. It was an analysis of SB19's Time. And it created a little bit of controversy, just a smidge. And some people took issue with my looking at their pitch accuracy through software. And I get it. I love the fact that ones like SB19 engender passionate support. I do. I think that's fantastic. In an age of AI where there is a lot of AI slop being just farmed and produced onto places like Spotify and YouTube, we need to support our human creators, our human performers, and SB19 are worthy of passionate support. But that being said, what I also recognize is that SB19 and ones like them are human. They are wonderfully imperfect. They are not robots. And I'm hopeful that we will continue to support human imperfection in all its wonder. So today, what we're going to do, because I think there might be a little bit of sort of misunderstanding as to my approach when I look at these videos. And so today's a little bit of an explainer. We're going to use an SB19 song called, and I am going to butcher the pronunciation of this, Tilaluha. Tilaluha? I hope that's even close. This is a song that a number of you in the comments of the Time review video made reference to, but the first person that gave me the link, and so I want to credit them with giving me the link to the first version that we're going to listen to, was at Jane Swade. Thank you, Jane. I'm guessing that your first name is Jane. And so Jane shared with me a URL, a YouTube link to a rehearsal performance of this recording of this song. And then what I was able to do is go and find, so they're rehearsing for a Wish Bus performance. So then when I went and found the actual Wish Bus recording that they did, I'm not entirely sure how many hours, days, weeks separated, but relatively close context to the rehearsal. We're then going to watch the actual performance on Wish Bus, and we're going to compare the two. They are not the same recording. They are different recordings, but I have aligned them in Melodyne just so we can make some observations and perhaps learn something about Melodyne, learn something about what I'm looking for when I analyze pitch, and perhaps it will put us all on the same page of understanding. Before we get into that, let me just sort of add one more thing. It is really important that you understand my intention when I come to doing any analysis of any singer. And that is, I am a learn to sing channel. Every day of my working life for the last 31 years, and 24 of them have been, no, 25 of them have been in this room, one-on-one with singers from absolute beginners, people who cannot put two notes together accurately, right through to touring professionals. I have worked with thousands of voices. That's not to say that I know everything about singing. I do not. But I have a good handle on it. I have a lot of experience with listening to voices. It could be that I, at times, hear things that the general public ear don't pick up on. That being said, when I come to doing my analysis videos, my intent is to teach singers. We are not a channel that is all about just pure unadulterated appreciation, though we do certainly appreciate the singers and what they're doing. What we're doing is we want to learn from them. Learning doesn't simply happen by, applauding what was done well and excellently. Learning occurs when we're able to recognize what didn't quite go right. What did the singer, and we get to notice this in most live recordings, what did the human being singer, performer, not quite nail, and why? Not just to point it out, but to understand why, so that we can learn from them. Professional singers, and many of the singers that we observe here on the channel, they themselves are seeking to improve as well. They're not listening to my feedback, but they almost certainly are in their own process of refinement. And so I don't think a lot of the performers we're watching, thinking of themselves as superhuman. No, they're approaching it just like you and I do and looking to develop their voice. We do have to be careful that we don't apply what's called the halo effect to these singers. In fact, when we apply the halo effect says what happens is we attribute almost superhuman, attributes to some of these singers. I think sometimes in the case of SB19, we can fall into that trap because we observe them doing marvelous work live, and they're brilliant. But that doesn't immediately mean they're superhuman and different in any way, shape or form to you and I. They might. In fact, they almost certainly have better voices than you and I and are more experienced professionally, but it doesn't suddenly make them perfect. So the context is important. The context of my Learn to Sing analysis videos is what governs my comment. I'm not looking to accuse. Whenever we do a pitch analysis and I make a suggestion around whether or not we think we might be observing pitch correction, that is not an accusation. It's not a gotcha moment. It's about building context so that when we, the Learn to Sing singers, come to doing what we're doing, we're not creating unrealistic expectations around what we're doing. A couple of comments in the previous video of Time, made reference to Phil from Wings and Pegasus, a friend and colleague who I've had and interviewed here on my channel and who I've contributed to on his channel someone who I actually know, everyone. And recognizing that Phil does some very, very good forensic work around pitch analysis. I'm approaching it a little, and he does excellent work. I approach it from a quite a different angle, because I'm not purely seeking to say, to basically reveal whether a pitch analysis is being used, pitch correction, I should say. And pitch correction comes in many forms. It can come in auto-tune while the singer is singing live. It can come in applied auto-tune after the singer's sung live. It can be applied to a pre-recording that the singer is then miming to, but it can also be done in a very surgical way using Melodyne, the program we're going to look at in a moment. And so that's really important as well, that we understand the very many different applications and the highly nuanced way in which those softwares can be applied in a very, very, very transparent manner. And there are some cases where pitch alignment has been applied, but you and I would never be able to tell, because it's been done in a wonderfully transparent way. And finally, before we listen to the song, because I know I've been talking for 10 minutes, finally, we are not seeking to say whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent to using it. I use auto-tune. Sorry, not auto-tune. One thing I do need to work on very intentionally is being clear on not using all the terms synonymously. I use pitch correction on some of my public-facing, personal singing performances. Some of them I don't. And so I use it in a sparingly way to sort of apply spit and polish. I tell you that because to say to you, I personally don't have an issue with the use of it, in the same way as I don't have an issue with the fact that Usain Bolt, one of, no longer the fastest, but one of the fastest 100-meter sprinters in the world, I don't have a problem with the fact that he wears aerodynamic clothing or footwear that assist him to go faster. Even if he didn't wear all of that, he would still beat me by a country mile running in just average jogging gear with no shoes. He would still flog me, but I have no issue with the fact that he's using those very carefully engineered pieces of equipment to facilitate even faster times. In the same way, I have no problem with the application of, things like tuning when it's not seeking to be completely disingenuous. It rubs me the wrong way when it is used by singers who quite apparently could probably not do that anywhere near to live. That is not the case for SB19, and we're going to show that in a moment, but we're also hopefully going to learn something. I'm going to dive into the analysis. We're not going to listen to the entire song. I'm going to put both links in the description section below so you can go and have a listen to them in your own time, beginning to end. We're only going to listen to what ends up being around about 40% of it, the front end of both. Before I tell you what we're going to hear or observe, I want you to be listening to this first performance. This is the rehearsal. I want you to be thinking to yourself, is that in tune? Like, is it, bang on pitch? And a lot of you are going to be going, yes, it is, I dare say. Well, let me not put words in. Let's dive in. You have a listen. We'll get to the end and have a talk about it. Okay, so we'll pause there. First, how young do they look? It's right back towards the beginning of the SB19 journey, isn't it? They just look so young. And you can really see how the personnel, the performance personas of each is not yet, well established. Now that we're much further down the track for them, you can see distinction that's been built into their visual differences. That all being said, what did you hear? I tell you what I hear. I hear really good young singers, young men. I hear pretty good pitch accuracy. Yeah, as in there's some moments where I would, if I was just listening to it and not looking at the analysis of it, I would hear them as being rather in tune. But I would hear also some flat notes. Let's have a look and see if that is actually the case. Remembering, we're not looking to build a gotcha. There is no question that this is live. You can hear it in the mix. No one's gone in post. They're literally, I think, are they just recording it on a phone? It looks like it. It looks like it's just literally a phone or some sort of device that's literally just capturing the room recording. So we know that this has not been doctored. So let's have a look at this performance just on page, and making a note of certain attributes of the live vocal of this rehearsal. Here we go. So just there is a good place for us to start. Just the opening line. Let's have a look at some things. So we can see this very first note here. Oh, what is this? The second note, the first long note. Have a look at that. Now, just so for those of you who don't really know Melodyne, see the grey area? That's the pitch center, the actual pitch that Melodyne has decided should be the pitch center. That's what it's decided it should be. So that if I was to double click that note, it would bring it into the middle of that note. The very fact that I was able to double click it and it moved suggests that it was sharp. So if I take it back up, so that note, if I double click it, and that's bang on A440, yeah, equal temperament. The wonderful thing about listening to voices on the fly is the ear doesn't typically grab onto that. We get to see it visually, but maybe we wouldn't pick up on that if we were listening to it live. From the get-go, that suggests to us that, our singer in this case is not pitch perfect. This starting note is sharp. We can't get away from that. But I'm not only looking at the mean value of the waveform and the pitch. I'm also looking at two other points. When I'm listening and looking, I'm looking at two other points. I'm looking at onset, the way the voice commences a note, and I'm also looking at offset. Let's have a look at this one just here, this one at the end. I'll play it through. So what are we having a look at here? So have a look at the very beginning of this end note, this end extension note. I'm looking at the front end of that note, the onset, the way the voice commences the oscillation of the vocal folds and commences sound. It is very, I went to say very normal. I'm going to say it's very human for the voice to have to find that spot, that point of pitch. Have a look at what happens here. The note, the voice comes down, but then to find its space, it actually he hits the microsecond moment he hits the pitch. The reason he does is because these boys, well, they are very young men at this point. These young fellows are very good singers, and so they orientate to note quite well. But have a look what happens. Oh, we dive back up. Nearly a full, in fact, it peaks at a full semitone away from pitch center. But then the voice goes, no, that's not where I'm supposed to be. And it reorientates back to pitch center. Great, yeah. But this starting point is not, robotic perfect. It's human. But I also talked about the offset, didn't I? When we hold a note for an extended period of time, it is very, very, very difficult to maintain dead center pitch accuracy over an extended note. Now, this particular note, and in fact, I need to just go to the time. So this particular note is it's just over a second long. It's actually not long. But have a look here, what happens to the note. As the note gets towards the end and he's starting to decrescendo the dynamic, and I should point out, see the yellow and the orange around the midline, the actual pitch. That's the dynamic of the pitch. Yeah, so this one up the top here, that's a louder note than the note down below. When we're not going to really look at that a lot today, simply because, particularly in this instance, it's a live recording in a room and dynamics are being thrown around by virtue of reverb and a whole heap of different things in the space. But what we can see is the decrescendo of the dynamic, getting quieter. But look at what happens to the note. The note starts to flatten. And that's a very normal thing when a voice starts to reduce airflow by virtue of decrescendoing the note. The pitch can start to fall off the pitch center. It starts to go flat. Alternatively, if someone's looking to increase their dynamic as the note is extended, we'll often see the note go sharp, but not if it's being corrected. What'll happen is the tuning will come in and grab it and twist it up or twist it down and hold the pitch so it sounds perfect. But in this instance, we know the gentlemen are singing it live And we get to see those very, very minor human inaccuracies as they go along. Let's keep going. And so what we've got that back there. Let me bring it back. So what have we got here? The onset, the voice climbing to find the note. And when it does find the note at the top there, what happens? It actually lands on it being sharp. It's a little high. And then the voice dies off again as it decrescendos. These are normal human attributes that we go about learning to refine and develop, but no human will ever make them look robotic, and we wouldn't want them to be frank. Yeah? Again, I think we're going to learn to appreciate as AI slop just continues to become ubiquitous in the space. I'm hopeful that we're going to learn to really love, you know, the human inaccuracies. Let's keep going. So look at this one. We landed half a semitone flat, but we corrected up into the note. Again, there's that one there. Look at that. That's an interesting one. Have a look at that. Remember I said that generally with the offset, we'll have a moment where the voice goes flat due to the air. But look at what happens here. In this one, it actually goes sharp. So the actual diphthong of the vowel actually changes the vocal tract shape and sends the note sharp. This is why singing is so hard, because there are so many variables that can take place. And so I've been told so many times that Pablo is a perfect pitch singer. And I've said many times how much I enjoy Pablo's voice, and I really do. But I've never thought he was perfect pitch. He's not. He's human. I love the tone of his voice, but here we can see he's not pitch perfect. If I double click that one, bring it up. Yeah? We get to see that the voice is actually it's within those semitones. You know, the average garden variety listening ear is going to hear pitch accuracy to within 15 to 25 cents. In a semitone, there are 100 cents. And our ear will pick up, the average listening ear is going to pick up anywhere between 15 to 25 cents inaccuracy if it's off pitch. The more trained you become in listening, the more refined you're going to hear the miss. And the trained ear, I've read, depending on who you read and what studies are done, the trained ear is going to hear anywhere down to sort of even around the 10 cent inaccuracy mark. So most certainly flat, yeah? And what happens here in the middle? We have a little bit of a, this little moment here is not necessarily pitch inaccuracy, it's a consonant. Nya, nya. We'll come up here. I'm just wanting to show you all of the fellows. So overshoots this note. Remember I talked about increase in dynamic? What's happening to the note as Pablo gets bigger in his note and in his dynamics, the volume and builds, crescendos. What's happening to the note? It's drifting sharp. Not to any terrible extent, yeah, but enough that we on the line, the pitch accuracy, we can see it move sharp. Flat. A smidge sharp. Okay, and then we get this lovely last note with a very normal reading of the vibrato, and you can see sort of it's not a perfect waveform. So that's them singing live. What we're now going to do is I'm now going to jump across and we're going to listen to that very same section in the recorded Wish Bus version. Then we're going to look at the pitch analysis alongside the pitch analysis from the rehearsal. And we're going to make some observations, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Here we go. Have a listen. And tell me what you hear in the comments section below once we've had a listen. I can't get over how young they were.
Sa tuwing ika'y nakikita,
Wish 107.5.
di mapigil ang luha sa aking mata. Paano nga ba, paano nga ba, paano nga bang limutin ka? Kung sa puso ko ika'y nag-iisa. Maliban ako'y umaasa, tama bang nadarama para sa'yo, sinta? Bakit nga ba, bakit nga ba, bakit nga ba mahal kita? Kung sa puso mo ay mayroon ang iba. Unti-unting lunurin ang aking nadarama, o buhos ng ulan, wag nang tumila pa. Paano nga ba mapapawi, labis na pagdurusa, kung wala mang pag-asa? Turuan mo naman akong limutin ka.
Okay, what did you hear? I hear just really good singing. I honestly do. Remembering again, I want to remind you, we are never looking at this with the view to, creating any gotcha moments or what have you. Now, what I've done, these are two different performances, but I've gone about trying to align them so we can kind of make some observations. Let's dive in and have a look at this. The top one is the new version, the fully recorded version. The bottom one, and you'll see it in the dynamic because the way the pitch, the stem separation works, we get a much cleaner and fuller vocal in the fully recorded version. Let's dive in and have a look.
Sa tuwing ika'y nakikita.
Wish.
Okay, so let's just stop there. That's the opening line. What do we notice? What do we notice? What I notice is how much more dead center the notes seem to be, and how much more accurate. So have a look at this, the first one. Remember, we're looking for the mean average of the notes, not that's an important point. So this first note, if I draw a mean average through this line, that's far more dead center than this first one. These fellows are doing this recording version within very close time proximity to the rehearsal. So it's not as if they've had years to develop better pitch accuracy in that period of time. They've not suddenly tuned up their voices. No, this one's a little bit more accurate, isn't it? Look at this top one. Look at the middle of that note, the body of the note. What do we notice? Just that little bit more accurate. Now, because these fellows are already good singers, and in my opinion, already have pretty darn good pitch accuracy as the imperfect human beings that they are, any tuning that's applied in post, whether it's being done surgically in something like Melodyne that we're looking at now, or whether it's using auto-tuning software, it's not going to be terribly different because the guys are already pretty bang on. And so the little bit of spit and polish, which I, as I've said to you before, don't have a problem with, is just going to tweak it, yeah? So what do we see in the tweaking? Here, what have we got here? Look at how dead center that note is. What happened before? The note sort of graduated down, but here we've got this snapping to the pitch center, and then we've got this really clean vibrato, which is distinctly different. I don't think that in and of itself tells us there's definitely tuning. And you leave your comments below. I am suspicious to this point. Let's continue.
Di mapigil ang luha sa aking mata.
So what have we got here? Interestingly, we've got this drop off there and we've got this climb there, but equally, the very top here, we've got this very clean middle of the note. Yeah, again, what have we got here? Sort of graduated down, and it's never going to be, because it is still human voice, it's never going to be exact, and the way the algorithm works is it just moves these things around a little bit. Continuing. So what have we got here? So let's turn this one off. So what I'm going to turn. So this is now the recorded version. Have a look at how dead center all of these go.
Paano nga bang limutin ka kung sa puso ko ika'y nag-iisa?
So he actually dips that note, and so the tuning that I suspect has been applied has been done in a lovely transparent way, because it allows that little deviation there. If you removed that, it would sound horrible. But the transparency of the application of the tuning is such, the suspected tuning, is such that we get that little bit of a nuance.
Paniba na ako'y umaasa, tama bang nadarama para sa'yo?
If we turn everything back on, the other vocal, what have we got here? Bang on pitch. But in this instance, in the recorded version, we approach that flat. I highly doubt that any singer is immediately going to be able to fix that. in such a short period of time. Remembering in the recorded performance moment and the adrenaline that's flowing with that, highly unlikely that they would fix that. I think that's been tuned.
Bakit nga ba? Bakit nga ba? Bakit nga ba mahal kita?
Now have a look. What have we got here? So this is an interesting one because you might look at that and go, well, look, that hasn't been tuned. No, look at the mean average of the wave. Now, what have we got going on here with the dynamic of the note? It's sitting almost outside the grey section, isn't it? I dare say what we've got happening here is the formant, the resonant formant of the vowel is actually a little darker in its resonance, and it gives the appearance of it being a little flat, but the actual pitch is bang on. It's a very back-placed vowel. And so I suspect that's why we get this anomaly. No, actually, I wouldn't call it an anomaly. It is as it should be, sitting just low in that section there.
Kung sa puso mo ay mayroon ang iba.
Okay, so here we've got this lovely middle of the pitch tuned to A440 equal temperament, yeah? Let's turn back on. What happened before? When he held that long note, it wanted to drift sharp. What have we got? There's no drifting sharp in this second section. I doubt very much that Pablo would suddenly be able to correct that. Skill doesn't develop in human biological voices that quickly, especially when it comes to managing pitch in connection to dynamics. It just simply doesn't. I've been doing this too long to know that it doesn't. Continuing. There's another one. So what have we got? Dead center of pitch. And yet when we came down to here, and it's not uncommon when we're descending in our voice on a melodic line, we descend. It's not uncommon for us to sort of bottom out and go a bit flat. It can happen the other way where we don't land quite down to the note and we go sharp. But in this case, in a good voice, it's very common to see it land flat. But what have we got? We're landing bang middle of pitch. I'm just going to turn this one off because I don't want to confuse the fact. There's another one. Dead center of pitch. Turn it back on. What have we got? The original, the bottom line, it's sitting sharp. But here we got it dead center. Again, I'm going to restate this so we're all clear. This is not a gotcha moment. This is a revelation that there is work being done to the vocals in post. Important point, it is highly unlikely that the fellows had any knowledge or control over whether pitch tuning has been applied to their voice in post. They'll have stepped into the studio, they'll have done their recording, and then they leave what happens to the vocals to the engineers and their production team, and that gets done after the fact. These fellows possibly go out and find themselves a good bubble tea and hang out. It's often the case that even when artists themselves are of the understanding that they're not being tuned, sometimes they are blissfully ignorant to the fact that work is being done to their voice in post. That they could know, but it's very regularly a thing where artists are not told what's happening to, because they leave that to the engineer. And so what we've got here is definitely what I definitely think to be some tuning. You could think differently.
kung wala mang pag-asa,
And we see this one here, the way that climbs.
pag-asa, turuan mo naman ako, limutin ka.
Okay, let's have a look at this last note here. The bottom one is the rehearsal. Remember, it's just sat just a smidge sharp because the boys, I keep calling them boys, they're young men, because they are good singers from the get-go. So we're not seeing a tremendous difference, but definitely this last note, you can see the difference between that human extension of the vibrato and the way the voice offsets towards the end. You can see this dip in the recorded version, in the rehearsal version. My conclusion, having watched this and having presented it to you, my conclusion is that the Wish Bus version has been tuned. You are well within your rights to come to a different conclusion. And on that, if you do come to a different conclusion, we'll have to agree to disagree, because my 31 years of teaching experience tells me otherwise. I think it has been tuned. That, in no way, shape or form, for me, changes my appreciation of these young fellows. If I hearken back to the performance that I reviewed of Time, to this point in time, excuse the pun, that is my favourite song of SB19. I love it. I think it's a great tune. And the fact that I concluded of that recording that it had been tuned didn't change my view of it, didn't change my view of the young fellows. But I can understand how, if you have fallen into the trap of applying the halo effect to these gentlemen, how that might create some psychological dissonance for you. Because if you have established this idea that these singers, ones like SB19, ones like Morissette, Gigi Delana, you know, you can name your favourite singers. If you have this concept that these singers have never and would never apply tuning to their voices, when you have someone like me come along and even point it out on screen and make a suggestion that it has been tuned, I can understand why and how that can become quite jolting. Let me finish by saying, I too am human. I too will make mistakes. I too am imperfect. And perhaps the lesson for me in some of the backlash I received on the Time video was I perhaps need to be a little less categoric in my observations, unless it's like, you know, you couldn't conclude otherwise. And allow the option for maybe the possibility that it hasn't been tuned against the probability that it has. And so that's perhaps my lesson. I wonder what your lesson from today's discussion has been. I'm looking at the recording time of this video. We're just about to go 50 minutes. I hope that's been helpful. Leave your comments below. Again, it's all about context. That's what we're here at the channel doing. We're not looking to catch anyone out. I am going to continue to use, you know, things like Melodyne and Voce Vista to look at resonance. We didn't look at resonance at all today, but, you know, one comment in the Time video told me to take my fancy software toys and do unpleasant things with them. No, I'm going to continue to use them. No one's forcing you to watch my videos. If all you want to do is hear these, singers like SB19 purely celebrated with no what might be deemed negative comment, then there are plenty of channels that'll do that for you. You don't have to watch mine. But we are going to continue to critique and learn here at Voice Essentials, and we are always going to do that in a respectful manner, and in an appropriate way as learners. Lifelong learners is what we are about here at Voice Essentials. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. Give it a thumbs up if you had, leave your comment, and share the video with others if you feel it's appropriate. I look forward to seeing you again next time. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.